Welcome to the Sustainable Living Podcast, everyone. I'm Janice Fryatt.
And I'm Marianne West.
And today we're going to be discussing on a blab discussion the envisioning of cheap or free energy for everyone.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our discussion, and I'm hoping a lot of people join us, which know a lot about how to actually put it into form. Because I'm good at envisioning, but then for me, it's a missing link is how do I actually going to make it happen for myself. But let's start with the envisioning part because that's the most fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to do.
Okay. Well, just quickly, just briefly, what we mean by energy, we're talking about enabling people to have electricity or something that will fuel their lights or power for 24 hours all the time if they can. And that's what we're talking about, and something that's renewable.
Mm-hmm.
It's also clean. It's not going to be polluting the world.
Right.
So what does that look like?
And I think did you say free or low cost?
Yeah, free or low cost.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So just to tell you, we had a little sneak preview of a video which is put out by the 5-Hour Energy people.
Right.
Which is funny because I'm really not into the product. I think it's I don't know. It doesn't feel like a healthy thing to do, but so people obviously have really good intentions. And I haven't watched the whole thing. Janice has, so I know there are a couple of things in there we might be referring to. Yeah. And I think we probably share the link to that video somewhere along the line, maybe on our blog, so you guys can come to sustainablelivingpodcast.com website, and then you find a blog and you can find also.
Yeah, and I can also share that in the text of the blab as well. We're going to be sharing a few links today, but one of the things I really wanted us to consider is the fact that so much of the world does not have access to electricity at all. I think it's about a quarter. From my research that I did, a quarter of the world doesn't have access to electricity at all. And I think even more people don't have access to electricity 24 hours a day, mm-hmm. which you can imagine what that does to their ability to advance as a culture or as a nation or city or just individually. It really puts a damper on the ability of humanity to move forward.
Which is true. And so the other side is that the nations which have access to energy and electricity all the time use methods which are very harsh on the earth. And so that's not a really good thing either. So I think what we're trying to envision is or what we are envisioning, not trying, we're envisioning it, and it will become form sooner or later, is to have the advantages of access, free access, or freely being accessible to energy without having coal mine pits which have destroyed, or the rivers being destroyed, or nuclear power leftovers. We don't know what to do, and they might fry us right now. We might not even know how much radiation we are exposed to, and in the future possibly. So all of those things. So
yeah and some other things to consider are that people in developing nations, the ones that don't have this access, the way they do fuel their needs are most of the time through biomass alternatives that really are not very healthy for them. They're doing things like burning animal pellets inside of their dwellings, which produce a lot of pollutants and poisons for them. And then they have to take so much time out of their day to go and collect these things. The women and the children are mostly the ones that are doing it. So they're spending all their time doing this. So they can't spend time doing something that might be more helpful to get them out of their situation. And also, you know, it impacts their health very negatively.
Absolutely. And you know, you you gave a key point here, said people have to spend so much time just to provide for their basic needs. And it goes beyond energy or electricity. A lot of time it's water people have to go and find. And because there is no pump or no power source to run a pump or to be able to transport water from the source to the place where it's needed, and maybe also the filtering of it, it becomes a huge problem.
Yes.
So part of the envisioning is we want clean water, clean energy for, you know, humanity as a whole.
Yeah, and actually there is some progress being made in developing countries. In my research today, I read that Kenya is actually the world leader in the number of solar power systems installed per capita. I guess more than 30,000 small solar panels, each producing 12 to 30 watts, are sold in Kenya annually. And it was the first African country to use geothermal power. So that's something that's being done on kind of a more traditional renewable energy level. It seems like the developing nations really are trying to step up to help, you know, their people to do this. But again, it's still difficult because most of the options are really centralized. And so, you know, to create an electrical company, you know, like here in the States, right, takes a ton of money to develop something like that and then hook people up to it.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of the times what we're trying to, this is I think should be part of our envisioning as well, is that the alternative should be more decentralized, because when it's decentralized, it's usually cheaper.
Right.
And the other thing that's really cool, and again, this applies to developing countries as well, as it's more sustainable when it's decentralized. I mean, what if, God forbid, something happens? You know, maybe there's a solar flare or something. I don't know. This might affect decentralized things too, but I think, you know, people that are hooked up to the grid, if the grid goes down, we're stuck.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So these decentralized options are really good. So, you know, when we're envisioning this, okay, something free that everybody has access to, something that's decentralized, something that does not harm the planet. How would it help? One other thing to think about is that, you know, all of a sudden developing nations, the people that are struggling right now just to get their water and their fuel, will be able to have a computer,
right,
access to a computer on a regular basis. Imagine how they can transform their lives, create businesses, you know.
And yeah, it's a sharing of knowledge and so forth. And, you know, computers at this point are really huge energy hawks too. It's the World Wide Web and everything like that. So, you know, part of that is making it, you know, a greener enterprise. We had Hussein who wanted to say some, I don't know, it looks like he was here. And are you still wanting to join in, Hussein?
Yes.
I don't know.
Hussein 56873.
Yeah.
Well, might be here, might not.
Yeah. maybe not. So I think we put a couple of key things in, and one of the things about decentralization, what comes to mind to me, for me too, is that a lot of power companies, at least here in the United States, are run for profit. So, you know, it becomes down the line the privilege of the rich again. How much can you do? And I live in San Diego, and we have SDGE as a company, and this is not an endorsement. That's the opposite of an endorsement. And I mean, there's nothing we can do about it because we don't have a choice. That's the only, either we need to go off grid and have our own energy, or we have to get our, you know, energy from this company. And a while back, there was a so-called energy crisis, and bills just went out of the roof. A lot of small businesses had to close their doors because they couldn't pay for the electricity anymore. You know, if you run a cooler or little bakeries which have a bunch of ovens going and so forth. I had a store at the time, and my bill went to $8,000 a month.
Oh my gosh.
And this was a small store. I'm
Wow.
selling onions and tomatoes and lettuce. So it
Wow.
becomes like a real challenge just to keep the door open, which, you know, that's one thing to lose your business, but a lot of people got their power turned off and didn't have heat anymore. If you don't have power, we also had just a couple of years ago a power outage, which only lasted, you know, 24, 48 hours, depending where you lived. But when you don't have power, you don't have running water. You know, there's a lot of things you don't have. And so this comes in for the decentralization. If you have your own solar panel and a battery, you're fine.
Yeah.
You know? Or if you have your rocket stove and you can just, you know, fire it up and do something.
Yeah.
But in terms of having energy connected with profit, makes it not accessible for everybody.
Yeah. And I do believe that nations are strengthened when the source of their, you know, economic power or whatever, the source of what makes them strong is decentralized, you know. Yes. But because if something gets hit, there's always something else there that will survive, you know.
Right.
So yeah, this is a really important topic that we all should be thinking about. And I think, you know, down through the ages, you can look at people who have tried to bring free or very cheap energy to the masses and have been shut down. I mean, you can look at Nikola Tesla, for instance. I mean, it's very clear. Just Google him and you'll find out that the man had a plan. And obviously this man was brilliant, because we wouldn't really have the 20th century without him. Right. You know, so if he came up with a plan to give free energy to the world, it must have been a viable plan. And it's very apparent that he was shut down by big business who did not want that source of revenue to be disturbed, you know.
You know, I think that's probably the biggest thing we are facing as, you know, humanity, is to be so profit driven in many things, that inventions are made and have been made which can solve all kinds of problems, but a lot of times they would replace another technology which makes a lot of money, and then it doesn't become reality. And so this is kind of something like, in my opinion, then it's the individual which has to take it into their hand to kind of see, okay, what can I do and what I can do in my environment, or support somebody who does somewhere else, who is doing this thing I want to see happening.
Yeah, and that's actually happening. And I would have to say, again, I think we can give another round of applause to the internet for that. because of decentralization, because the gatekeepers of information have basically been obliterated, and anybody can do a search online or go on YouTube and find out all kinds of things that before were off limits to them. These people, and believe, you know, this is what's brilliant. I think we assumed that everybody was just very profit driven, and all they cared about was profits, because we kept seeing this over and over again. But they're coming out of the woodwork now, people that are really just interested in helping humanity, and brilliant people, scientists. One of them is the nuclear energy engineer M.T. Keshe of the Keshe Foundation. And I will put a link here for anybody who's interested. We'll add these links again into our show notes today. But this man is here's a definition of the Keshe Foundation. It's an independent, nonprofit, and non-religious organization founded by nuclear engineer M.T. Keshe that aims to develop new scientific knowledge, new technologies, and new solutions to major global problems like famine, water shortage, lack of electrical power supply, climate change, and disease through the use of special developed plasma reactors, which will also give mankind the real freedom to travel in deep space. And so, you know, kind of the internet was abuzz within the last couple of weeks because I understand Mr. Keshe made available some blueprints for the plasma reactor, a plasma reactor that, you know, you could actually make yourself. And you know, talk about free energy. Here it is, and obviously it's not even, it sounds like it's renewable. It sounds like it's clean. It's very exciting to, you know, be in these times when people are doing things like that. Here's another description of one of the things that he is developing. He calls them day and night panels, which deliver current day and night at levels considerably higher than those from present solar panel models. These DNN panels will be able to supply constant power to electrical and electronic devices. And this one's under a patent application right now. But
But that would be huge, because right now, even if you have your solar panels, unless you have a battery, which is very expensive and not so renewable, you know, as far as technology which is available to us, once the sun goes down, you don't have energy anymore, and you still need to be hooked into the grid, which then you're still dependent on, you know, all of those things. So
yeah. It's a huge, it's definitely a very big deal. There was the other person that you mentioned before was Manoj Bhargava, who is the billionaire philanthropist behind 5 Hour Energy. He made his money through that product, but he had all this money and he said, what do I do with it? He really wanted to just help humanity. And if you watch that video that I put up the link called, I believe, Billions in Change.
Yeah.
He talks about his philosophy and how he's really not interested in these things making a profit necessarily. The main goal is to help humanity. And boy, is that refreshing to hear from a billionaire.
For sure. Well, I mean, the thing is, when you already have $1 billion, do you really need more money? You know, I mean, it's kind of this thing, you know, which is so maddening. Said people, you know, just go for money for the money's sake, and it just is a number. Unless you're, what's his name, the Scrooge McDuck, right? Put it in your bathtub and bathe in it. Okay, that is your thing, that you need more money, but you know, most people just have it sitting in the bank and that's it.
Oh, absolutely. I think I could sit here and talk all day on this issue. I think it's akin to anorexia. You know,
it is some kind of a deep-seated disease.
There's a disturbance. Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. But
I wanted to get back to that video because I think there's one thing both of us were really resonating with, and both of us, I'm just speaking for you right now, but I think we both want it. And there is a bicycle. Yeah. Where it's hooked up in a way that you can bicycle for 1 hour and then run all the electricity in your house for 24 hours.
Yes.
So there is a storage device of sorts. And, you know, and those bicycle ideas have been around for a long time. And I used to ride my bicycle a lot. And then part of the training was that you had like a thing at home where you either were riding on rollers or it was something where one wheel was set stationary and in the back, and then you were, you know, had rollers in front. So right there, you had kind of the setup, but I never figured out how to connect it to make energy with it. But it keeps you so healthy.
Yeah.
You know, just to ride your bicycle. And that one was a reclining bike. So it's even more comfortable. You just, sit
Yeah.
there, and that could be the time to watch your show you love.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he said. The side effect is better health. You know,
Yeah.
you're not polluting the environment. You're not creating anything negative, only positive. And oh, I just love it. He calls it a hybrid bicycle and also called free electric, which is something he wants to provide. Really, his aim was to help that other half of the world that doesn't have electricity.
Hmm.
You know, imagine, I mean, your free time, your time is freed now. You're not spending most of your day trying to do power. You're spending 1 hour and it's actually improving your health
Right.
instead of, by the way that they're doing it now with the biomass, it actually degrades their health. So it's
Right. Right.
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
Um,
so another cooking device which would be very low energy is solar
oh,
ovens,
lovely.
and they have come a long ways and can be very, very cheap. I have gone to several workshops where you take a poster board in aluminum foil and some clips, and you just glue that foil onto the board and you cut it a certain way, and now you have your little solar oven.
Wow.
I have to say I haven't been 100% successful in cooking with it. I think it works more if you just want to heat up some, and you definitely need a dark pot. And but there's like so many different ones. There's one out right now, and I will find the link. I don't have it handy, but the goal of the company is to sell them for $200-300 in the United States and Western Europe, where people presumably have money to buy that, and then provide very low cost versions of the same stove in countries
So
where, yeah,
so kind of like the guy with the shoes, Tom's.
right.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, I'd
Yeah.
love to get that link, Marianne.
Yeah, I will look for it. I think the one thing which is a little bit we have to look out for to not be too presumptuous, because we are coming from our idea, this blah blah blah, this is how it is, and why don't you take this product and cook with it, kind of putting a solution on top of people instead of bringing the solution from the ground up. Because I think there have been a lot of well-meaning money or project is being wasted if you don't involve people who actually are going to utilize it in the decision making. And so I'm just wanting to throw it out there. Said, I think in our vision, we're all working together on finding the solution. If you live in the developed world or in the not so developed world, said, it's not our vision said, here we are in this rich country and we have all this great idea, and here we give it to you, and now we're not looking for an up-down relationship.
Yeah, I'm so glad
so
I love it when you bring that up, because it's so important to have a partnership with the rest of the world rather than a paternal relationship. Oh, we know how to do everything. Here you go.
right.
Yeah, that's what I like about a lot of these solutions that I'm seeing that are, again, more decentralized.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's it. Thank you for bringing that up. And that's something that we can all use, actually. And that I'm actually going to ask for a solar oven for Christmas. I think it's a great thing to have, for so many reasons. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, for me, one of the things that I love is the idea of microgrids. And basically that idea behind that is decentralized solar. So basically, if you're in a community and there's a bunch of people that have solar panels on their buildings, you could hook them up and create your own energy that's just for your community. And that, again, we've talked about the advantages of that. It could potentially lower your, well, it would lower your electrical bills, but you could also provide and help those people that don't have access to solar. You could provide them with electricity that's a lot more low cost. Plus, it's decentralized. You're not dependent on a big corporation for your energy anymore, which, gosh, I love that idea.
For sure. Yeah. There's so much. There's a bunch of new people which joined. I'm wondering if somebody would like to join in on some conversation.
We've got an open seat here. We actually have a couple, I think. So if you'd like to join in, you have something to contribute, or you have a question. Okay, we got somebody.
Yeah, Mark.
I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Oh, that's okay. Welcome, Mark.
But I liked what you said about decentralized. I just had a long conversation with some people trying to explain that. I don't know if you know who I am or what I do.
Tell us, please.
Mark Profit, and I've the descriptor of predictive innovation, which is a structured system of thinking. And in that, we can actually map out technologies or anything out for a very long period of time. So what I've been mapping out for a long time now is the fact that we're moving past this scarcity types of models, and we're kind of halfway between. And in order to get out of that into the new abundance type systems, you have to use a system that's based on the abundance. So we want the abundance, the result that's the abundance, but you can't use an old style of system where it's based on centralization and worrying about efficiency in that way. It has to be another way. It has to be an any-all type of solution. People distributed different methods. So I always just wanted to mention that's where it's going and why it's going that way. And
absolutely. And how much of that, I wonder, comes from, well, obviously the internet, but also the idea of open sourcing. So you're crowdsourcing these ideas. All of a sudden we have access to millions of brains put together that we never had before. And gosh, that's got to accelerate the innovation.
Yeah, that's definitely an any-all, right?
Right.
Anyone can use it.
Yes.
Now everyone can use it because everyone can hear it, and that's a different model.
Yeah, it really is.
Sell that if everybody can have it.
Yes.
It's not the same system at all.
Yeah, kind of like air, you can't sell air, right?
Right.
Well, there is not really anything wrong with selling because not everybody is going to want to always take advantage of it. I think the problem we are having in our current model is that there are a few which hold it in their hands to sell, and only a few others have enough to be able to access it,
Right.
So trade and barter and all of those things are always a good thing, or not to be, because when people hear that, sometimes you go, oh, chaos and no, and especially in America, people are so, afraid of socialism and communism, and so that's immediately what comes up. I think the idea is that by sharing, we all can have access, but it doesn't mean that we are doing away with. I might not be wanting to put this. I don't know if you were in when we talked about the bicycle to create energy. I might not have the knowledge or the time or whatever to put it together. So I still would like to maybe buy it from somebody. But at the same time, it's available if I could do it to, so that I can do the parts myself. And so I think the sharing also involves that we can make it better and better and better, and then keep sharing the improvements with each other.
Yeah, and the other thing that's nice about that, I think, is that when we're sharing things openly, it's really hard to put a clamp down on any technology that's going to be threatening to my profits. If it's already out there and everybody has access to it, so you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
So part of that, then we would even have to think about patenting, because this is what has happened a lot. So things are invented, they get a patent. Somebody with a lot of money buys this patent and puts it in the closet, right? So if you have it open source, then you can't really have the patent on it, but you also kind of ensure that it doesn't disappear. And I think what you're saying, like the abundant thinking has to come first, because if you feel like people are out there going to steal my idea and running with it and making money, then you need to protect your idea and hide it from others.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. And we're in a transition period. We're not at full abundance yet,
definitely.
but we're not at scarcity either. We're in this halfway point, and it's a real mess if the thing that you make is now abundant. So how much do people want to pay for something that's free? Well, nothing. But that's what I make. But I need things that aren't free anymore. How do I get those? And this is the struggle. This is the really big struggle in that point. And that's what we have to deal with.
Right. I think last week we talked about the share economy, and that's kind of where that a little bit comes in to, what value enough what you do, said, I want to, whatever, you give me this idea, I'm going to give you a dozen eggs because that's what I have,
Right.
That type of thinking, which might be a little bit idealistic, because people, I think you find like groups of people which are willing to do that, and somehow human nature sometimes gets into that hoarding thing, So,
but again, it's scarcity thinking, and that we are. I do think we are in a transition. I think people are starting to think a little differently, slowly now.
Yeah.
But Mark, I would love to know more about your organization and how, what you're doing and how that might relate to the idea of free or very cheap energy.
Well, not so much organization, Predictive Innovation, which is .com if you want to read about that. I've got a book on it. I teach courses on it. I do consulting on how to use that method, which is a very encompassing method. It's based on, I'm a physicist by training and experience and stuff. It's based on information theory. So any idea, anything that can be made or done must be able to be described.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, what I've done is I figured out how that there's a fundamental set of descriptors, ways of describing anything. And so you can then know that you've described all of some particular topic. And that's how you can predict, because you know what all of them are. And if there's a box that's not filled, that's going to come sometime next.
Mm-hmm.
And you can then go through this systematically, figuring out what to do and then how to do it, because it's all described for you adequately enough so that now you can put it in your real life and move through it. And so one of the things about it is the average human mind can only grasp about 7 things at one time, 7 plus or minus 2. Well, that universal descriptor showed me that there's 36 for anything. Now, the positive thing is there's only 36 types, specific types. Now, there's multiples of each type, but they're just different types. But that's way bigger than the average person. That's 6 times bigger than the person can do in their head.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it seems so beyond people's thinking, because it is. It literally is beyond your thinking. But it's not beyond being able to do just with paper and pencil.
Mm-hmm.
So we have these solutions, and like, here's a free energy for everyone. Transportation is a big issue. I'll just say this one. This one will probably jump to your mind. Although we right now, so the ideal transportation gets you from anywhere to anywhere in 0 time.
Yes, I love it. Envisioning.
Okay.
I mean, awesome. Yeah.
So this is the description, right? Transportation is you're taking something and it's getting to the other place. Now, you can look at transportation a couple ways in that, but the ideal transportation is teleportation.
Right.
Well, teleportation doesn't fit into the model of a vehicle, any vehicle.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. Something's got to change. You've got to get rid of material. It can't be a material thing, but it's got it. But how do I get there? Well, you and I right now, all 3 of us are teleporting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in your room right now. I'm talking to you. And not only that, I'm not in your room. I'm in her room too. and you're both in my room, and I'm guessing
And
we're on
in a
different
bunch of other
continents.
people's rooms who are watching it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not materially traveling, but we are there, and it was instantaneous.
Yeah.
So we got the result in a completely different how.
Yeah.
The same what, different how. And the energy involved in doing that is almost nothing.
Yep.
So these differences, these ways of achieving these results are very unexpected to the people who are experts because they're experts in what we have today.
Right.
Yes. I just, it just reminded me of something that Manoj Bhargava said in that video about how he just basically says that experts are great at knowing what we did in the past.
Yeah.
Right? So how can you really tap an expert to innovate something that, they have to imagine for the future?
Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that's why kind of part of why we want to do this visioning thing, because if you can't think about it, you cannot put it into form.
It's huge. And I love what you're talking about because a lot of the time, no, not a lot of the time, just almost all the time, we are limited by what we're able to think, how we're able to think. So you're providing a tool, it sounds, for people to expand their ability to think in many different ways that they're not able to think about right now.
Definitely. Exactly. You want to see a demonstration of something?
Sure.
This is kind of cool. Maybe you'll get it. You might not be surprised by it.
Okay.
I've got several demonstrations of things, but this one's just a demonstration. One of the things I do is practicing is I try to come up with seemingly impossible problems. Mm-hmm. So here's one. So I've got three shapes, circle, square, and a triangle. They're all the same height. They're also all the same width. So that means that this circle will not go through that triangle. That triangle will not go through that circle, and the square won't go through either one. Right?
Right.
So, but what if there was an object that was a circle, a square, and a triangle? That would mean it could go through here, perfectly touching all sides and go all the way through, right? It's a circle. But if it is also a square, it could perfectly touch here and go all the way through, touching all sides. And it's a triangle. It means it would have to touch all points there and go all the way through. So it would be three shapes, but just one. How could you possibly do that? Is that possible?
Well, a shape-shifting thing.
Shape-shifting. That's one way of doing it. I was thinking of that. But no, one object, no shape-shifting, solid, real object.
I'm stumped.
You're stumped. Okay. You're working on it, but I think it's slowing you down a bit, right?
Definitely slowing me down. I thought shape-shifting was pretty good.
I thought
it was very good.
I thought it was too.
And it has to be, and it has to touch perfectly.
Yep. So you might call that a round square triangle, right?
Right.
Well, I have one in my hand right here.
Okay.
So there it is. It is a circle, right?
Right.
It is round. It's a circle. This one's bent a little bit, but I dropped this on the ground. So it goes all the way through.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's also
look at that.
A triangle.
Surfaces.
Wow.
Right.
And it's a square.
That is brilliant.
Excellent.
And in two-dimensional worlds, flat thinking, that would be impossible.
Right. Thank
Wow.
you. Let me give you a whole bunch of.
You just demonstrated something with a visual that I think most people could never get if you were just trying to explain it to them.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I did this. That's why I made it.
But, as a visuals, they're huge because, again, if you can't see it, either with your eyes or in your mind, you can't get there,
Yeah.
So,
right.
So we have a big motivation to get this on YouTube, my friend.
Yeah.
Because that's wonderful. Oh, I'm so glad you stopped in, Mark, because you touched on something that is really basic to all of this. It's the ability for us to think and envision the future instead of going back over and over again about what's wrong with the way things are and how we get stuck in the problem. Mariana and I are also big permaculture fans. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you know of the principle that the problem is the solution. That's one of permaculture's principles. The funny thing about it is most people don't realize permaculture is a way of thinking. It's a way of helping people to think, and that's really what we need more of right now if we want to innovate in the future. So I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing, and I want to definitely share links to what's going on with now predictive. It's called predictive innovation, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Predictiveinnovation.com.
Yeah.
And then if anybody wants these, I can get those because people actually, I would show these to people, and people on Blab started telling me I have to have one. And I'm like, well, okay, I can make them. So actually what ended up happening is somebody, again, sharing economy is interesting, or not economy, because economy is distributing scarce resources.
Yes.
This was distributing abundant resources. People on Blab said, all right, you're going to make a website in the next 30 minutes and get that up to sell. And I'm going to write the HTML for you. And then the other guy was coming out and he says, well, you need a logo. So he did it live on Blab.
Wow. Very cool.
And yeah.
That, I mean, again, internet, at its best here, and we're coming together spontaneously. We're not even planning these things. We're just going, hey, I want to talk about something. And then a bunch of people show up, and then boom, amazing things happen like this. I'm, again, so glad you showed up, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the link to that's roundsquaretriangle.com.
Okay.
And you can help that. But yeah, it's very cool what you're saying there. So
yeah. So we're kind of running towards the end of our chat here. Is there anything else that we can think of that might, when we're envisioning, affect how we're able to take the things that we envision and make them real?
Yes. I actually have a real simple process. It's chapter 16 of my book. Called inversion principle. Okay. And I'll really quickly run you through this a little bit.
Okay.
And remember, so I showed you here something that you thought was impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe you did, but it was really hard. And all I did was just add a dimension.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That was already there, that you didn't think about it. So let me give you another seemingly impossible problem. I need a new suit to get a job, but I need a job to afford a new suit. Mm-hmm. We call it catch-22, right, or chicken and egg. It seems like there's zero solutions, right?
Yeah.
You can't do this because of that, and you have to do this, and you can't. Well, there are at least 1,024 solutions to that.
1,024. Okay.
Wow.
I think of a few, but not 1,024.
Yeah. So that's part of what predictive innovation can do. I can actually tell you how many there are.
Wow.
So, and I can tell you them because I know what they all are, and I'll show you how to do it. Now, there's a little simple process. We make assumptions. Mm-hmm. Assumptions may or may not be true.
Right.
All right. Then we make generalizations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a generalization might be true, but not in all conditions.
Right.
So you have to go through every single word in that and look for your assumptions and your generalizations. Mm-hmm. Now, the way that you do that is you take each word and you flip it or invert it.
Okay.
So now you're seeing how I got 124 or 1,024?
Well, I'm not sure if I see, say, 1,024, but,
there's 10 unique words in that sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'm going to take, as the sentence is, take each word, flip it. So now I've got 2.
Mm-hmm.
And when you mean flip, can you tell me specifically?
Instead of I need a new suit to get a job, not I.
Okay. I
Mhm.
love it.
Okay. Does the job have to be mine? Assumption? No. Does the whole job have to be mine? Does the whole suit have to be mine?
Right.
Brilliant. You know what? That reminds me, I've got to say, reminds me of improv.
Okay.
I'm a former improv performer, and there's rules in improv. And that was a game that we often would play, would be, flipping whatever it was that we were doing. And that's actually a game in acting too. Whenever you're trying to get at the truth of something, turn the whole thing around and amazing things happen.
Yeah. So now when you flip it, you've got two. You got as it was and the new thing,
Mhm.
the opposite. Well, that's 2, and mathematically, that's 2 to the power of 10. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, that's 1,024.
Wow.
Mhm.
That sounds like sacred economics to me.
Yeah.
Or not sacred. I was going to say sacred, like math, it's like the whole sacred geometry thing, the whole,
I don't know about that necessarily, but there is some interesting math that comes out from all this, which explains a lot about. I mean, that's what I did
yeah.
with all this. But
So it's interesting to take free energy as, maybe make it a little bit more specific how we're saying that, and then start flipping and go and see, well, where are we coming up with also solutions? So that would be a really good exercise.
yeah, so you do that. Well, I will, since you're getting done with this, I'll tell you one little other dangling thing is helpful for you. So I've identified things. So I have identified that there are 216 specific types of waste.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what these are, you can look for them. And the cool part about that is anytime you find a waste, you can get 2 values from it. One, getting rid of the waste.
Mm-hmm. People
will benefit or pay you to undo that, get rid of that. And now you've got a free resource.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem, is the solution in permaculture. In my permaculture class last month, they gave the example of, it was Larry Santoyo who gave this example. You've got bamboo, lumber. People want to use bamboo to build things because it's so light, it's so strong, there's so many advantages to it. However, it has some very specific conditions that it thrives under. 2 of them being lots and lots of water and lots of nitrogen. Where in the world could you possibly get something like that? How about those manure lagoons that the the farming or the cattle industry is always creating, right?
Pigs.
Yeah.
Chickens.
Yeah.
Chickens have more nitrogen than all of them.
Yes. Yeah. Lots of nitrogen, but water. See, those manure lagoons that everyone always complains about, you got both. So
the pigs are horrible. Horrible.
But see, again, if we're looking at these problems, is like, in what universe is this problem a solution for something?
Right.
So do you have a list of the 216 ways? Because I actually think that I expect that list to be bigger.
Yeah, me too.
I can't run down the list. It's 216.
I know. No, I was just wondering if you have it in your book or if.
I do. I have it on my website for the people who join that. I do have the lists structured out.
Great. Oh, this is so exciting. I'm so glad you joined, Mark. I think we learned a lot today about the root cause of a lot of things, not just our people's difficulty in getting energy, but obviously so many other things. It really comes down to how people are able to think, what they're able to envision. You can't envision things if you're always stuck in this one box of how you think. So
I just needed to source it out because I think it's so interesting. It was a TED Talk I just listened in really briefly, and she was talking about how we go to school and the teacher's in the front and the kids are in the back, and it creates a one way of thinking. Is that our mind actually gets trained to just think in this box, really, and maybe that's where thinking in a box is coming from. So just, we were homeschooling. And to me, it was so exciting because everywhere you go, you have learning opportunities, and there's just not that little box you're sitting in. And I never even thought about it. So just by the fact that here's a teacher, here am I, and learning is this way, is that we actually restrict our brain. I thought it was fascinating.
Really good.
Yeah, that lesson. I didn't go to school. I mean, I got out of school. I escaped school when I was 12.
That would explain a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually took me a year to recover.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
And
but in a year, if you were 12 by the time you got out, a lot of kids got out of jail,
Yeah.
I mean, it really feels that way. Yeah.
So then I was able to do useful things, and so it's not the text that they're learning, it's that box that they're learning.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
it absolutely kills me. I watch my grandson a lot, and so sometimes we go to toddler story time. And part of their whole thing is that they give kids like coloring things. And, to me, it's like you take the crayon and you color the whole page, and that's great. And so many parents is there, no, you have to stay inside the lines.
Right.
And it's, we put so much training on this. Stay inside the lines. Stay, do not open your mind,
Yeah. Whoops, we lost Mark.
Yeah. Hopefully, maybe next time he will join in.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna
to follow
Mark.
Him.
Yeah, I think Mark is here, but he's not on the video anymore.
Right.
But I just want to say, Mark, I really hope that you keep in touch, and we're doing an envisioning discussion every Friday because we think that's a very big reason why we're a lot of times not able to move forward, because we can't envision. And it sounds like you are on the same wavelength on that, and possibly maybe we can get you on the podcast to talk about just specifically these thinking skills that are so important. So let's please stay in touch. Follow. Oh, he's back.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would love to do that. I would love to contribute to your stuff, and I'm glad to meet both of you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and I will just in the message, I will leave you my email, and then let's just connect via email too afterwards. Okay, that would be great.
Very good.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. And if you guys have any thoughts or comments, takeaways, anything on this topic of free energy or cheap energy for everyone. Also, if you have any ideas or thoughts on the other things that we discussed, which involved our ability to envision and think in ways that allow us to think beyond the scope that we're able to think in now, please do comment here or comment on our website. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. Okay?
Absolutely. And also, if you have discussion points you want to envision in the future, so it doesn't have to be us saying, hey, this is what we want to think about. If you guys have ideas and say, hey, let's envision the perfect this or that, please let us know.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again. Have a great week, everybody.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.